I got kicked in the hip leading him out to the paddock. And then a couple of months ago, I got bit in the arm. He will sidestep over, he'll step on toes, he threatens to kick, he doesn't like being brushed.
Careful there. Because he's learned to do these things, I don't want to see you ever get bit or kicked again. But the only way that's going to happen is if you set these boundaries. If they misread the situation and the horse makes a mistake and hurts somebody, that's it. He's super smart, I'm telling you. Easily top 10 smartest horses I've worked with. Hey guys, we got an interesting horse for you today. This horse is kind of attacking and biting the owner when she's just trying to groom him. And so I'm not sure what the solution is going to be. We got to jump into it and find out. But hopefully we can get this resolved because this is getting pretty dangerous. Real quick, I want to say a thank you to our sponsor of today's video, Savvy Horse Products. More about that in a minute.
A week ago on Friday, I got kicked in the hip leading him out to the paddock. And then a couple of months ago, I got bit in the arm, just trying to put his blanket on in his stall. He turned around, grabbed my jacket, grabbed my shirt, and pulled. He just, on the ground, exhibits a lot of signs of stress and anxiety. He threatens to kick. He doesn't like being brushed. He's still great to ride. He tries really hard, but I really would like to just find a way that we can make him happier with his job, whether in his stall, help reduce the anxiety. I don't want him constantly be stressed with what he's doing. I want this horse to enjoy his life.
With the fact that he's riding well, that lends us to think it's probably not a pain issue, it's like an anxiety issue. And even if it was a pain issue, at this point it'd be kind of hard to even handle and assess it.
Doing flexions on this horse with the vet would be, you're not going to get a true understanding of what's actually sore because you don't know what is he being reactive to pain or what is his normal reactivity. Yeah. So these are all things that just to be a rideable horse in any kind of program and manage safely, things that I feel that I need to address. I'm always open to learning new things.
Well, I'm excited to see if I can help you out with him. Help him find some relief and comfort in doing the things that we'd like him to do. So I'll have you get him out and just kind of show us a little bit and we'll go from there. This is good because we have at least a starting point. The first thing I felt with handling him is that he was overtaking my space. And in horse language, that means he's in charge, okay? And so see the little lick and chew and the blowout that we had there after I bumped on the nose? And I'm not aiming at his nose in particular, it's like whatever he's leaning on me with. And that time, half the pressure, he stepped over there. So this is the first conversation that this starts with. Everything I'm going to do with him is essentially about balancing him. To me, they're just basic fundamentals of horsemanship where I want to be his leader. I want him to see me as the herd. So I want him to connect with me, not the other horses. Hey guys, real quick, I'm going to interrupt this video to talk to you about the sponsor of today's video, Savvy Horse Products. And in this case, we're going to talk about the Savvy Feeder. So this is a feeder that Emily and I recently have switched to using, basically to replace the hay nets that we were using. So hay nets can be a little bit cumbersome to load, kind of difficult to load into. They can also arguably unsafe for the horse. Potentially the horses can strain their neck getting the hay out. One of my concerns can be that they're going to paw it and get a shoe hung up in it. And so the Savvy horse feeder is super, super safe to use and it's way easier to load. So let me really quickly show you how we load this. So you flip it over and you just lower this pin down and then this grate slides right out, load your hay and slide it back in and you're good to go again. The other thing you'll notice is that these are interchangeable, and so there's a few different ones that they sell with it. They have small, medium, and large, so depending on how long you want your horse to take to get through their hay, it can slow them down a lot. And it actually slows them down more than a hay net does, which we really like. This also has this kind of webbing on the inside. There's just no risk of a horse getting hung up on anything. They can paw it and play with it and move it around, and it's very safe and very durable. Our horses have tested it out thoroughly. So we really like this product. It's kind of refreshing to find a product that actually does all the things it claims it's going to do. If you guys are interested in replacing some of your hay nets or switching to a different feeder, get your hay off the ground, and put it in an easy, slow feed product, the Savvy feeder might be for you. So go ahead and check it out at savvyhorseproducts.com. Let's get back to the video. So I'm looking for that connection, but I want him to let me be the herd leader. I don't want him to be the herd leader. If he's the herd leader, well then I'm gonna get taken wherever he wants to go, and he's gonna get scared of whatever he thinks the herd leader should be scared of. So I'm gonna rely on my judgment more than his to what we should be afraid of. And so those are the two really important reasons that we want to be the herd leader. And so what I'm gonna do now is I'm just gonna walk somewhere else in the arena, and then I'm just gonna say to him, this is my spot now. And so we'll see. So he kind of checked himself there. That was really good. But I'm gonna ask him to just be a little bit further away. That's really good. I like how much he's thinking about this and like putting his ears forward, and he's connecting to this idea pretty good. But this is really where it starts, just here. Because when he's swinging his head towards you in the cross ties, and before he even bites, that's where it starts in terms of the accountability to say, even that correction right there, I'm saying to him, this is my personal space, and I mean it. It's not a request, it's like, this is my space, and you can't come in unless I ask you to come in, or I walk into your space. So the next level of this will be for me to walk into his space and say hi, and I would try to do that politely. So I hold people as accountable as I do horses with how you approach them. But then if I back out of his space, if I'm not doing anything to draw him to me, he should just stay right there. This is not only just the feet, it's also where his head is swinging. I know a lot of people that have gotten stitches on their face from a horse, bonking them. Their heads are very hard, and this is where it starts. And now I like this. This is more like curiosity and playfulness versus when he was chewing on his tongue, and like that was more of an anxiety-based thing. I feel like this is going to be a fairly simple project, but it's going to take some homework on your part in terms of like the sequence of how things get set up. The last thing I would do with him is get him out of his stall and put him in the cross ties right away, because that's where he's learned to have some anxiety there, and I think he knows it pretty strong. But I would just take him out and I would mess with him. And by mess with him, I mean doing things like this, of just starting and stopping and saying to him, this is my space, and you need to stay out of it, because this is the same boundary that we're gonna ask him to be responsible for in the cross ties. When you move around him to brush him and saddle him, he needs to just stand there, and he's not allowed to chew on you or kick at you or step into you. Now again, there's many, many times where I ask my horses to come running to me and come all the way to me, but I ask them to. And that's very different than not being aware when they just step into you, And so he's receiving this very, very well. So the really good news is that he seems very coachable, and that you already have him settled in here. So you've caught it before it escalated to more. Because if you had done things differently, I think these behaviors could have really escalated to a lot worse behaviors, and became very dangerous. So sorry, I'm talking a lot. I need to get working. But you can see how little that could take now. And essentially, how I would teach him to lead and not bolt ahead of you is I would teach him to lead behind you. Lots of people argue with me about this because everybody wants to control the horse from right here. Well, right here, you're putting his hand in the cookie jar. I love cookies. If you tell me I can put my hand in the cookie jar, but I can't have a cookie, that's probably not a good idea. Like, my wife would be better off hiding the cookie jar, and I'll be more likely to not go for one. So this is putting him in too much of a temptation to get himself in trouble. Now eventually I want you to be able to lead him here, but to start with, I would have you get in the habit of leading him here. Now here's the other part to this. This is going to require some discipline and some habits. If he was my horse and under my program, anybody that was leading him would know training starts in the stall. He doesn't come into our space, he doesn't get haltered without good expression, he doesn't get led from, because if you're doing good training in here, but he's getting led from point A to point B and it's wrangling him, that's not gonna change anything. So I am one of the most disciplined people you'll ever meet about a training program until we change the habit. Once the habit's changed, then it's fine. So that's where I would start with this. But then there's a lot more things we can do proactively besides just leading him if you wanted to go deeper with it, which is what I would do to get him to where he can even find relief in there. The next thing I would share with you is that if he gets anxious about something, like he's anxious about the cross ties and we feel like it's really just a more of a fear-based thing, I would think about bending his rib cage, yielding his hindquarters, and some side passing Those would be the three moves. But I like this, where I'm just walking over here and he's willing to yield his hindquarters. You see how if I'm giving him a look, like I'm staring at him pretty intently. Now I'm gonna switch it. Now I'm gonna walk up to him to pet him. And you see how he read my body language? He read the difference. That's really important. Horses are just super perceptive to things. See right there, he was pushing on me. I was trying to pet him and he went to push. So you have to hold him accountable to all those things. What I would not want to do with him, so don't mishear me on this, don't stand here and play tit for tat, back and forth, back and forth. It would be much better to do some yields with him that are bigger moves, so that you petting on him is where the relief is, not just him tolerating it. And so I wouldn't focus on that. I would focus on doing some of these yields. Like the hindquarters is good if you feel like there's tension and you want him to relax more. And then if you want to be proactive about the personal space and getting him to yield his nose away. So like this, instead of playing the tit for tat game of he bops you with his nose, so you bop him back and he steps off, I wouldn't do that. I would get to this and I would get him to step off. He took a big step over with his left foot there, and then there's a big lick and chew. And so this is what I mean by doing it proactively. Like I'm gonna ask for all these yields while he's at a distance and his hand's out of the cookie jar, so to speak. Essentially, these are all the tools that I would use if I was trying to get a horse back with me. If I was leading him out there and things fell apart, I might do a hindquarter yield. I might need to back him up. I might need to move his front end. But if I haven't practiced these and got him good at them, I don't have that good a chance of using them out there. So that's the whole point of all this, is that you would ideally practice these in here, get him good at it, and then be able to apply them when you need them, essentially. And hopefully, after doing them, you've gained a lot of ground in terms of him seeing you as the leader. Those things start to almost disappear. So what's interesting is, one of the things people like about my channel is that I show me working with horses that are unruly and not just the finished product all the time. But I have to be really careful about filming it right away, because once I start doing it, it gets better. But what people, I think, miss sometimes when they see me working with my horses is I do so many things proactively before I get them into a difficult situation, that what would be normally a difficult situation goes pretty smooth, because I've done the preparation. I put in the homework of doing these things. And that's what I mean by, like, it'd be very normal to think, oh, you'd take him out of the stall, put him in the cross ties, brush him, saddle him, and then come in here. But it's like, well, I think this horse needs to come in here and do this first, and then we're gonna have a successful thing there. And I think changing a few of those little things are gonna go a long ways. So I think there's like quite a few things that you've been doing right to help him get settled. And then there's just a few more things that we can add to it. So there he pushed his ribs towards me, and I said, you're on my bubble. Like, don't push on my bubble. So we'll see if he does it again. Now, he's not anxious out here, which is great. That's why I was excited, because if he was super anxious out here, it's like you got to get through that before you can have a conversation. I was able to just jump right into conversations very, very quickly. See that nice bend like there? He kind of offered it nicely. I'll take that, and then we got a little lick and chew there. He's very smart. Also, what I'm noticing now, I had to bonk him a couple times, but now I'm noticing that he's actually quite sensitive to pressure. It would be easy for you to do too much with him. Easiest ways to do too much would be to go too fast. So if you're gonna move your stick to ask him to drive away from you, move it slowly, because that gives him time to respond to it. He could get very defensive if somebody was moving around him too quickly. There's the ribs step in. So those little step ins are the exact step ins that you were talking about. Now, the scenario is totally different. I'm on a circle, you were in cross ties or in the stall, but it's in the same place in his brain when he does that. And so when you're playing with him on the ground, be super aware of those little moves, because he tests it. He just does these little things. Now imagine if I was like out here like chasing him around like this, I would not allow him to do that. I kind of get him going, and then I say, hey, what do you want to do? And he's like, well, I just want to stop here. Okay, that's fine. I mean, like, that's not doing any of the things we didn't want him to do. So that's good. But you have to do less first in order to let a horse show you where they're trying to be. And if he wants to test something, then it's like, oh, there's the spot, and then I can fix it. But if we would cover that up, if I was marching around at him, go, drive the ribs, you got to do this, you got to move their feet and do this, I would never allowing him to make those mistakes. Now I'll practice approaching him. Now also notice when I approached him, he got a little defensive. Do you see that? So I waited and I let him connect with me. A horse like this that's that sensitive, how you approach him is very important. Yeah. Oh, there it is. So he wanted to connect with me on his terms, but because that's not, and I think he was in a good frame of mind there, it was okay, but because sometimes he does it not in a good frame of mind, and the ears tell you, right? And I would basically just draw the line and say, there's no free steps if I didn't ask for them. But I want you to be able to go into him and touch him. So that's what I'm going to work on a little bit now. And I'm going to wait for him to change his expression before I continue. See there, he got curious about me. We'll take that. So notice there, he let down and put his head down. That's where I leave him be. Most people would go, well, you're petting him, you're giving him relief. He doesn't see that as relief right now. And that was pressure to him. More than what some of the other things I was doing, which is interesting. Then he let down, I retreated. The relief is now, I'm retreating away from him and giving him relief for doing that. And then we got a little lick and chew. Reading him and having those conversations is what's going to make the difference. But I wanted to touch him there, but I got to wait. See the ears? And now I cheated, he looked at the other horse, that's fine. But I'm going to reward him on good ears too, because he had the bad ears, right? So any of those things can be where you release him. The two big ones are going to be head down, ears forward. You could also walk away if he licks and chews or if he blows out while you're there. But when you're in there, just be mindful of how he feels about it. And again, I'm doing this like, I'm not trying to just brush him, because if you're just thinking about getting a job done, you're not thinking about how he feels about it. But it's all a conversation. All of these little things mean something to him. And so we can't breeze over them. Like it'd be so easy to breeze over these things with him, but they all mean something. So if I approach him and he starts trying to retreat away, and in the cross ties he can't. And so essentially what I'm doing is I'm kind of waiting for permission here before I touch him. These things seem really tiny, but they kind of are, but they matter to him. Okay, so I like that. So now I'm going to test him with, this is now a little bit more exposure. So this is a good example of he's not reading my intention. He's reading the energy of the flag. It's like essentially it's the exact same thing that we've been doing with everything else, but this is just a really clear visual of like, I can't step to him with the flag, just like, but we also can't step to him trying to touch him without him getting bothered. It's not the same, but it is. It's the same game. So there he landed, so pressure goes away. What I'm gathering is I think he feels like he had a few things done to him at some point, and I think he probably just had a little bit of a lack of understanding of things, and that led to him just having some anxiety about it. I'm going to share a phrase with you that a lot of people, they think it would be the opposite of what's true. Horses aren't anxious because of pressure. Horses are anxious when they don't understand pressure, because they'll put a ton of pressure on each other, kicking, biting, all kinds of things. Like they can handle some pressure, like physical pressure, but they're like mentally, emotionally fragile. And so they get a lot of anxiety when they don't understand what the pressure means. And so I think there was just a few of these little things that he didn't really understand and never said it was okay. And then it was like, it led to some of the other behaviors. And so I'm purposefully doing this enough to bother him, to show him the point of reacting and getting worried about it. This is the same type of worry that he had in the cross ties, but essentially in the cross ties, I think he's being defensive. A lot of people would say because he's biting you that he's being aggressive. He's not shown me any signs of being aggressive, but those were, everything we saw in the cross ties, in my opinion, was actually him being defensive. He was protecting himself because he just hadn't said it was okay. And it's probably the environment more than the brushing and that sort of thing. So when I do the flag, this scares him enough that he's not defensive, he goes to flight mode. He thinks about leaving, right? So it's a different look that we see, but it comes from the same place. Some deeper thoughts here, but it's the way I'm interpreting it. Super, another lick and chew. Very, very smart horse, very thinking, much a thinker. So I'm gonna do that again. So I'm testing him here, but instead of releasing him with nothing touching him, I'm gonna up the ante and say, now I'm gonna release it with something touching you. So now the relief is meant to be here. So if he wants this to go away, he's got to stand still and settle. now it'll go away. But I'm still going to approach him slowly with it. Now see there, he read it correctly. Really good. He's super smart, I'm telling you. Like, easily top 10 smartest horses I've worked with, of how quickly he's adjusting to these little games. But he's also got to get okay with things touching him. But you can see it's like, it's not just the brush, it's like kind of anything touching him. But I'm not going to force it on him either. If he's not okay with it, I'm finding that line. But that, do you see how that's a good frame of mind? He could be running away, but instead he chose to get curious about it. There's nothing, even though I wasn't successful. I didn't touch him with it. But I was successful because he got in a better frame of mind. He switched from defensive to curious. And I released it when he was curious. And so that's going to be the challenge with him, is trying to release him in the right frame of mind with everything you're doing. But it's just where we're at. I love this stuff, like, so that I get really into where they're at and trying to understand everything. So like him and I are having like a very sophisticated conversation, but we're just standing here at the same time. And there we touched you. Good boy. But for safety's sake, we're going to maintain those boundaries. So I hope you can see how polite I'm being on approaching him and respecting how he feels about things, while simultaneously having a high standard of boundaries for my own safety. Okay, we're going to try cross ties now. Now see there, he passed me, and I set the boundary. Me catching him and having accountability for those extra 3 steps that he took when I went to put my flag there is the exact same accountability to when he's thinking about biting you in there. The more you hold him accountable out here and you mean it, you don't go, I'm going to count to 1, 2, 3, and then I'm going to count to 1, 2, 3 again, and then maybe we're going to do something. Nope. I said don't do that. I'm not going to count to 3. I'm just going to, it's his responsibility to not come through my personal space. Full stop there. When there's a stop sign on the road, does it mean come down to 2 miles an hour, look both ways quick, and then go? No, it's full stop. Like, that's, you either fully stopped or you did not fully stop. Like, if police officers ask questioning the scenario, it's black or white. They did it or they didn't do it. And so with him, when you ask him to hold or ground tie or whatever we want to call it, stand still, you have to have that expectation of your personal space, because he's learned to do these things, I don't want to see you ever get bit or kicked again. But the only way that's going to happen is if you set these boundaries. That's for you. For him, how you approach him and you say hi and you get permission before it makes him more defensive. Now, I could walk up and pet him, I could jump all over him, I could work on bareback mounting, I could do a bunch of things that would really irritate the heck out of him, but I would be doing it to him. And so I'm trying to set it up where I'm respecting how he feels about it at the same time. So it's equal doses of our safety and how he feels. Yep. And I'm not allowing one to be, and that's where I feel like I'm a real middle of the road horse trainer. There's people that can be really like fuzzy wuzzy about everything, and I'm just going to give them more cookies, and we're just going to try to find all kinds of workarounds. And there's people like they're just going to beat the heck out of the horse and make them listen and whatever they're going to do. And I'm like, I'm going to protect myself. We're going to be safe about this, but I'm also going to 100% respect how he feels too. And that's what's tricky with him, because one minute I want you to bop him on the nose, and then the next minute I want you to slow down and feel for him as you're approaching to come in here. I've worked with many of these horses that I'm their last chance or they're getting put down. It's literally life or death. And when I give the owners a game plan, there is no room for negotiation on the game plan. It has to be done this way, because if they misread the situation and the horse makes a mistake and hurts somebody, that's it. And I value that. I think that's really important. I don't want to see that horse get put down. I would much rather bop him right there and say, nope, we're not going to do that, than I would let him have his hand in the cookie jar and end up making a mistake, and having a regret later on. Okay, let's check out these cross ties. So I'm not going to let the cross ties control him just yet. I'm just going to see if I can interact with him in here and be cool about it. So his job is to stand still and keep his head straight. And I think it's fair. What I'm doing right now, I believe, is fair. I don't think it'd be fair to go from the stall to here instantly. And I'm not totally sure it's fair to do it with the cross ties on. So I like that. He's looking around, he's being curious. That's fine. We want this to be a good spot for him.
Yeah.
But by those little accountability things, he knows I'm still in charge here. I think what happens is when he gets hooked up to the actual cross ties, all of a sudden it's like he did just do whatever I want to do. If I'm working with a horse here and he doesn't want to be here, I'm gonna let him not be here. If he doesn't want to be here and he wants to go out here, I'd let him. But do you know what's out here? Hot lava. You just caught it. I call it hot lava.
Okay.
That's my universal term for we're gonna put some pressure on out here. There's different ways. Might be a hindquarter yield, might be back up, might be changing directions, might be a sort of, whatever the scenario changes. But if they're on hot lava, my life is up. I'm asking them to move around and yield. The more you try to hold him in here, the less he's going to want to be in here. Essentially, imagine that I handed you him and I said, here's my horse. I want to pay you to teach him to stand still in cross ties. And so it's like, he's never been in cross ties before. We want to teach him to be really good here, but he's afraid of them. And so it's like, well, I might introduce it gradually. You know, I might try to make it a positive place. You would think about it differently than a horse that's been cross-tied as many times as he's been cross-tied. I think that's one of the reasons I get along with off-the-track horses pretty well, because I just go right back to ground zero and I build them up. But I don't create a lot of anxiety in them because I don't expect them to know. I don't have expectations of what they know. But because they know a lot of things, it's pretty easy to like skip a lot of steps. And that's kind of what I feel like I'm learning from my off-the-track thoroughbred, Nelson. What I do like about what I'm feeling with him in here, other than him shopping for cookies, is I'm not feeling any sort of like danger instinctually from me of like, he's trying to bite, kick, you know, feels really whatever. So I would do, whenever you got stuff you got to get done, you got to blanket him, you got to do it, I would struggle through it out there. Yep. Not here, out there, out there. Yep. And I would also always do training before you come in here. And then I would, as many days as you can, just let this be the reward, the sweet spot. Because I feel like this is a change from where we were at. So I would consider this a win. You ready for your turn? So what did you think about that session?
It was good. There was a lot of things, breaking it down, confirming some of the things that I had seen, and just giving me different tools that I can use in my toolbox for addressing this horse. Keep it calm, keep it friendly. We need him to be able to give us the okay to go in and pet him. He respects it a lot more, and he settles and relaxes down a lot more when he's given the choice, but he's still not allowed to come into our space. Yep. So we can set those boundaries where he can have his feelings and his opinions, yep, and yet we can stay safe.
Perfect. So are you going to continue working with these exercises?
Absolutely.
Super. All right. Well, thank you for having me out and letting me work with him. He was fun. He was a super cool horse. I really like him. It's like a NASCAR pit crew. After I bop, what am I looking for? Bop, bonk, bop, one of those. Bump him, bop him. I don't know why I can't say that today. How you approach him is very important. Watching. He thought about it. This is getting real nerdy. I'm like going into like a lot of serious detail with this horse. I didn't go, oh, please back up. Wave your arms in the air like you just don't care. That was interesting.
He knows what's over there.
What's over there?
A bag of treats.
Oh. Good for you. Good for you. Have you used these much? A lot of times these feel awkward to people if I'm like, okay, make sure you use this tool while you have him doing this. And then they're like, we are training at all times, never ends.